Xwayland's rootful mode is only getting better and better. Now, as always, rootful has nothing to do with the root of your system. This is the counterpart to the normal way that Xwayland runs called rootless mode. For example, with this GIMP window, rootless mode basically means the window is integrated into your Wayland environment. Now, as for rootful mode, this is more akin to Wine's desktop mode. I can do something really cool like this. Firstly, opening up a rootful window. That by itself isn't that exciting. But then we can open up Awesome WM inside of that window. And why stop there? Let's open up an application inside of that. So what we have here inside of this window right here is Awesome WM running inside of Xwayland on top of my Hyperland environment. And inside of this window, this is just a regular Awesome WM session. I can do all of the normal things that I'd want to do there. Now, the only issue I have is my hotkeys do conflict on Hyperland and Awesome, so none of my hotkeys work. That's a problem of my own creation, though, and is solvable by not duplicating your hotkeys. But for a properly set up environment, this is just Awesome WM. Do ignore the fact that it says I'm running Hyperland inside of Awesome, inside of Xwayland. None of these fetch applications know what to do with this environment, so they just report what the host is. As always, I can't speak for any issues on the Nvidia side, but at least on the AMD side, this runs exactly as well as the rootless mode. So if you have a game that maybe plays weirdly with the windowing system used on your Wayland compositor, and you want to run it inside of a full X11 environment, you can do that with basically zero overhead. The only overhead is running the additional X11 software, and you don't even have to run this. You could just run it without a desktop. Now, when I mentioned hotkeys earlier, there is an option that could deal with this, that being the dash host dash grab option. So if we go launch Awesome again here, what this does is locks my mouse into the window. What it also should do is stop any hotkeys from running that are from the host. It doesn't do that on Hyperland. I can't speak for any other desktops though, so that isn't a way to get around it. Just don't duplicate your hotkeys if you actually want to use them in this session. However, we have a slight issue. Whilst we do have some of the major issues addressed, like Xrender emulation, for example, so if I run Xrender, right now it tells me my resolution is 1920 by 1080. As it should. If I then go and resize the window and I run it again, it will dynamically change the resolution and now say I'm 1061 by 715. So if I move this to a 4K display, full screen it, it'll tell me it's running in 4K. If I move it from a horizontal display to a vertical display, it'll give me a vertical resolution. But the problem is this. There is only one connected display. My system has 3 displays. This Xwayland session doesn't know that any other displays exist. The only display that it thinks is connected is this window right here. That's the only thing it knows about. Not this entire monitor, specifically this window right here. To the Xwayland session, it sees the window sort of as like a virtual display, a virtual screen, and it doesn't really think anything of it. It's like, okay, this is the thing I'm displaying on. Alright then, let's do that. So I was very excited and then very disappointed when I saw a bit of work being done on Xwayland. As always, it's by Oliver Forden. Xwayland. Add a dash output command line option for placing Xwayland rootful full screen. This adds a new command line option, dash output, to specify on which output Xwayland should be starting full screen when rootful. This part I didn't really care that much about. The second part though, that allows you to run multiple instances of Xwayland rootful full screen on multiple outputs. This is the part I read and thought it meant something completely different. What I thought it meant is what I was getting at earlier. So with this rootful session, we just have a single connected window that acts as a single connected display. I thought what you could do is have this one here full screen on one screen, another one full screen on a second screen, another one on the third screen, so on and so forth. And instead of those being separate Xwayland rootful sessions, those windows could be connected to the same session, effectively emulating a multi-monitor setup. Now, whilst this merge request didn't get that much attention, there is another person who had a very similar thought to what I did. That person being Neil Gumper, because Neil is everywhere all at once all of the time. Can multiple outputs be passed into a single rootful Xwayland instance? Oliver Forden, no. The idea here is to have different instances on different outputs. So, as an example, I make this Xwayland rootful instance. This normally spawns on whatever display I make the window on, but with the output option, I could say automatically make this window spawn on my main monitor, and it will also spawn in full screen. So if I go and make another one, let's say 13, and instead of saying put it on my main monitor, I could say put it on my second monitor, but these are two completely distinct sessions. If I run an application in this session, it is a different application to the one running in this session. As an example, let's go and run awesome WM. This is going to run in 12, but not inside of 13. In case it is not completely clear what I'm trying to do here, I would like to make a way to preserve these old X11 environments, because whilst places like KDE and GNOME and Sway, which is basically just i3, are all on the Wayland side, there are so many window managers out there which simply aren't, and a lot of these aren't abandoned completely. They are still being updated, but are never going to be ported over to the Wayland side. But we have this thing that perfectly run these sessions inside of a single monitor, but that's the issue. They run them inside of a single monitor, and a lot of people, I know a lot of people like using laptops and use a single display, but a lot of other people also like to have the ability to use multiple monitors. And if you could run Xwayland rootful in some sort of lightweight Wayland compositor, whether it's something like Cage or LabWC, it really doesn't matter because you're never going to actually interact with it, or DWL, it literally does not matter. But you ran Xwayland rootful on top of this thing, and then inside of that ran the X11 session you want to run. Xwayland and Xwayland rootful aren't going anywhere. This would give you a way to just keep running that session long and long into the future. Obviously, it would still need to be maintained to make sure it works with modern dependencies, but besides that, these sessions could just stick around. Maybe that's something you don't want to see happen, but personally, whilst I am excited for what is happening with Wayland, I don't think it's just a good idea to throw away all of this software. This is why Xwayland is great. If we didn't have Xwayland, I probably wouldn't be on Wayland at this point, because gaming, for example, is entirely reliant on X11. Now, I'm not sure on all of the technicals and how you would need to modify the code to do this, but considering that Xwayland is basically just a modified version of Xorg, unless all of that multi-monitor code was just stripped out, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't at least be possible if someone was interested in this actually being a use case. Now, you might have spotted this down here. Brodie Robertson mentioned in this issue here. So I actually did make an issue about this just to see if anything could possibly be done about it. Support attaching multiple rootful windows to the same rootful instance. And thankfully, our main character, Oliver Forden, did reply. This comes with a number of challenges, making it quite difficult to implement. For a start, Wayland Protocols does not provide a mechanism to place a surface full screen across multiple outputs, so the root window would have to be split into multiple top levels. So the way that I understand it is he's saying you couldn't have one mega window go across every single output. Instead of that, you would need to have individual windows for each of your separate displays, which is how I assumed it would have worked in the first place, but there might be some technical challenges in actually doing that. The way that I imagine it, and as I said, I don't know the technicals of the code base and whether this is possible, I would imagine you would have these individual windows for each of your monitors, and then you would sort of virtually glue the root window together so it would look like they're connected, even though you don't actually have this big mega window. Also, Xrender emulation would be pretty much impossible. Right now with a single output, we can emulate Xrender resolution changes by either using a viewport when rootful or by resizing the top level window in windowing mode. But with multiple outputs, this would have to be applied to a portion of the root window. If what I said was possible and you could glue a root window together, you theoretically could resize a portion of the root window, and that probably wouldn't be an issue, maybe. As I said, if someone knows more about the code base and whether that's an insane idea and horribly inefficient, let me know. More challenging is the locations of the outputs. Xwayland being a standard Wayland client, it has no control on the actual output layout, e.g. EDP1 placed to the left of DP1 for example. It just gets and reflects on whatever the Wayland compositor has configured. So there is no way to achieve compatibility there other than coming up with a mechanism for controlling the output configuration, something that was decided against in the past. There are existing mechanisms, but no standard one. I do have a theoretical idea for this, and it's going to require a diagram. Okay, each of these black boxes are one of our physical monitors, so in this case, we have a 3-monitor configuration. But as we established earlier, Xwayland doesn't know about the entire monitor. To the Xwayland instance, all it sees is its window as the connector display. So in this case, we have 3 Xwayland windows. We have a red window, a yellow window, and a green window. And if these were all connected to the exact same session, how would you handle the layout? Well, you could just treat them as if they are next to each other and ignore what the rest of the Wayland session is doing. And if we're treating them like virtual displays, you can then let Xrender handle the placement however you want. So if you want this red window to maybe be aligned down the bottom here, maybe be aligned at the top here, Xrender has the power to do that. Or you could go even crazier with it and say, okay, I want the yellow window down here, I want the green window on top of this, and then maybe the red window over here, for example. So what I'm getting at is the way they are placed in the Wayland environment doesn't particularly matter, because in X11, you could just fake a different layout that allows you to place them however you would want to place them. Whilst it is easy enough to make these diagrams and theory craft about a solution, he could be right that this is a really technically challenging problem, and also, I would not be surprised if this is something that was discussed in the past and then just, you know, they didn't want to do it. That, honestly, I feel like would be the real reason that something like this would not be implemented. I have seen more Wayland discussions than any reasonable person should see, and so many of them end exactly like this. So if it's another one that ended like that, I wouldn't be even remotely surprised. Honestly, I really hope this is a problem worth solving, because Xwayland rootful is so very close to being all the way there to preserving an old X11 environment. It just needs that one little extra thing, which might not be a little extra thing, and then it will be done. Then everything you need is going to be there. But we'll see how it goes. And I guess, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you possibly have a solution for how this could be done, let me know. If you have a solution for how this actually could be approached, please get involved here. Don't go and ask Oliver, hey, can you do this? Go do this. Please do this. That's not useful. But if you have a practical approach or you know something about this project, please do get involved. So, let me know your thoughts down below. Like the video? Go like the video. And if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe, Pay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and goodbye, X. Welcome back